And we're rolling. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Live at 5. Yeah, we got it together. We better late than never. Hope you're well. Thanks for joining. And look at that, the stroke of 5:02. Perfect timing. That's like we said. We're going to rename the show Live at 5ish. Actually, there's a very cute character 5ish. There's a beautiful outreach organization in the East Coast called URA, from the word or, I guess, which means light. And it's an educational outreach organization, especially for kids. And they made for a long time, they had a fundraiser where they asked people to donate $5. They had kind of a raffle, and it was $5 raffle. And so they made this character, like almost like a mascot, a big guy in a suit. And it was 5ish. He was a $5 bill. Very strangely, he only has 3 fingers, which you'd think, a guy with the name of 5ish should have 5. But anyway, very cute. Name is 5ish. It's for those of you who are not familiar, there is a very traditional Yiddish name, 5ish. That's an actual name, but this was like a fiver. Basically it's the Yiddish for fiver in that name. So anyway, he became their mascot. And last night we filled out this year's raffle. So they gave it you could put a $5 raffle ticket in each of the different pots you want, and maybe you'll win that prize, So they have like 30 different prizes. So then you have to give $150 if you want $5 in each prize, or even if you don't do that. It's they raise a lot of money and they put it to very good use. A great organization. They even have a thing called Cars for Kids. So this is a great East Coast donate, like a fundraiser. People all over, Jews and non-Jews alike, love to donate their cars. They have 1-877 Cars for Kids, and there's billboards, and it's the phone number. Donate your car, Cars for Kids. And who wouldn't give their car? You got an old car. Who wouldn't donate it for kids, right? And it actually is a fundraiser, funds this organization. It's really a neat idea. So my daughter was a camp counselor at one of their outreach summer camps. She was the photographer. And when they were leaving the campgrounds and going to go out to the water park, they all had to wear their Cars for Kids t-shirts. So that when everybody would see them, they'd be like, "Oh, look, you're the Cars for Kids car. You're the car for kids, right?" That's very great. And it was really very lovely. It's a lovely camp, and they do a lot of great work. So we're also 5ish, but we're just live at 5ish. I wanted to anyway today, before we get too deeply into anything, I wanted to wish a mazel tov to one of my dear friends who just became a grandfather. You may know, I'm going to wish a mazel tov to Jay Camlett. Good old Jay Camlett became a grandfather, and his daughter Lisa in Las Vegas had a little girl, and very nice. And I said, send me a baby picture. Let me see a picture. He said, yeah, I'll send you a picture. Little babies, sometimes they're cute, but mostly not. I mean, this is a cute baby, but babies in general, they're not really cute. And he was very honest. I don't need, I said a lot of babies all look kind of like old Jewish men. I think that's what babies look like. When they get to a certain point, they get squeezed out of the womb. They're like old Jewish guys. You know what I mean? They kind of get fetched out in his face. Anyway, yeah, but it's a very cute little girl, and we wish them well. They should have a lot of nachas. And I said, your father, Stanley, Stanley Camel is a bit of an icon in Denver. He was the Jewish National Fund fundraiser since, I think, before they had those little blue tzedakah boxes, and so I said, oh, is this his first great grandchild? So Jay says to me, no, my father is like, Kanai is like 17, 18 great grandchildren. So very sweet. And, great grandchildren. We should all be blessed with a big family like that. The great grandchildren, it must be a special thing. You know what I mean? Great grand. There's a blessing, and it's a nice song. Ure vanim levanecha shalom al Yisrael. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase. It's from a verse in Psalms, and you'll see children to your children, and that'll be, shalom al Yisrael, peace to the Jewish peoples. So we got some grandparents on the show. It's good to be a grandparent. Yeah. Anyway, that was our little mazel tov for today. Also, I want to just again reiterate our wishes for a fuah shlema for those who are ill. Shana Hudis Basileia and some of the others that are I know that are struggling with another round of corona. But today's a big day. I think today is the last day for the dial in Colorado. All of the mandatory state requirements are being lifted tomorrow, apparently, at some level. I think that's good news, some going in the right direction. So that's kind of nice. And we're all excited about that. Okay, do you want to do anyway today? Talk about it. We're Thursday. This is sort of late in the week. We're getting close to Shabbos, and I thought I would just talk a little bit about the connection between Shabbos and the Parsha. So we talked about this week. Parsha's Tazria Matzah. It's a double Parsha. It's a double header. But the very, very first topic that's in it is actually talking about bris milah. It's about the special idea of Jewish circumcision, bris milah, and the Torah has talked about this before, because we know that Abraham was told that by God directly that he should launch this historic Jewish practice of circumcision, that as a deal, as kind of a bond, a covenant to put together Abraham and his descendants and God in this holy deal. It's what it means, a covenant. The word bris means covenant, and bris, in fact, I learned recently, is from the word bria. Bris, bria, they have the same first letters, and bria has to do with creation. And perhaps it's that way. It's for that reason that the covenant, the deal that God made with Abraham, is marked by circumcision, which is in the place of procreation, because the word it speaks to creation. That's the same root letters, and so the covenant of circumcision has to do with our generations, the children and the children's children and the great grandchildren, because Abraham is told, you're going to have children, and you're going to connect them to me in this way, because the children that are boys are going to be given this circumcision. So in the place of procreation, the place of generations, that's where generations will come from. This is the bris of generations. It's the covenant of generations. And so anyway, the parsha starts with that. And that is always a connection. There's always a connection between that circumcision and Shabbos. It's a beautiful thing. There are certain things that are known in Judaism as signs, okay, like a street sign. In Hebrew, the word is an os. We have certain things which are signs, okay? One of them is Shabbos, one of them is circumcision, and another one of them is actually tefillin. Tefillin are these interesting little black amulets that are worn, also by Jewish men. You get one for your head and one for your arm, and they are small leather boxes enclosing scrolls, and the scrolls contain several beautiful, meaningful, holy parshas, paragraphs from a Torah scroll. And we actually wear those. The word amulet is, I don't know if you ever heard tefillin called amulets, but that's actually a similar concept. It could be a Jewish example of an amulet, in the sense that you're wearing something that has significant value and is even is healthy or holy, provides benefit to the wearer. So these three things, tefillin and circumcision and Shabbos, are called by the Torah signs. So the Chafetz Chaim himself actually has sort of a beautiful metaphor when it comes to these three things. Talked about how what does it mean it's a sign? What is it a sign of? So he said, look, if you go one day, after the pandemic is over, and you go down to go check out, your favorite restaurant. Our restaurants are opening up at 100% capacity now. So you're going to go down and you're going to check out your favorite restaurant. If you get down there to the restaurant and hypothetically it would be closed. So you'd say, okay, well, listen, maybe they didn't get the memo. They didn't realize the pandemic's over. They didn't know that we're open. They didn't get the governor's permission to open. So they're closed. So fine. So come back tomorrow. You come back again, they're closed again. You wonder, but the sign's there. All right, you know what? You'll see. You'll wait a week, you go back. But what if you go back and not only is it closed, but they took the sign down over the door? Well, now it's over. Now that you stop coming back because the sign's down. So the idea of a sign, said the Chofetz Chaim, is, look, we could be open for business, we could be closed for business. I come there and nothing happens, but the sign's there, I'll keep coming. I'll assume that if not today, tomorrow, mañana, as we say in Yiddish, but I'll come back. The problem is, if you take the sign down, then why should I come back? Then I know it's over. So these things are signs. These are like important things. We have to maintain them. And really, it's been very beautiful that these things continue to be normative, major parts of Jewish life for millennia, for thousands and thousands of years. These are sort of the signs, and we keep these signs. We cling to them tightly. These are our signs. So that's and it's a connection not with just with this Shabbos, with any Shabbos, but this is the Parsha. This is the time we're going to read about it. God said to Abraham to do it, and Abraham did it, and he was not a young man. The moment that Abraham circumcised himself, he was 99 years old. 99. He was older than you, Dave. Yeah, I know. So and he was an old guy. And the truth is that that's part of the incredible thing. And he didn't have a moil on hand. He had to take care of it himself, because it wasn't a moil yet. It wasn't a very lucrative business. He was the only customer. So there were no moilim, and he had to do it himself. And who was the first person that got their bris at the eighth day? Who was that? The one that of course, baby boys get a bris at 8 days old. Who was the first one to get a bris at 8 days? It was Isaac. That's right. It was Isaac. Isaac got the first 8th day bris. And you know who got a bris when he was 13 years old? Yishmael. Ishmael got a bris when he was 13. That's why the Arabs are so angry all the time. Can you imagine getting a bris when you're 13? That's a horrible thing. No, I can't imagine that. I am told that they don't practice it at age 13 anymore, because I just don't think that there's a lot of that would go so far. That doesn't go so easily. Try grabbing a 13-year-old that and try explaining to him about that he needs a bris. So that's not happening. But an 8-day-old is a little more amenable. And I heard some fascinating, amazing things. The old joke. Guy said, "Oh, this older Russian fellow, he didn't get a bris in Russia, so he had to get a bris. So somebody said to him, 'Oh yeah, I remember when I got my bris, I didn't walk for a year.'" But that's just a bad bris joke. Anyway, the 8-day-old is much more amenable, and he and there's a beautiful thing that was borne out by medical. Fascinating medical research. And again, I'm not going to be able to quote the researchers of the study, but it was published a couple decades ago. Very interesting. It seems that there was a way to gauge as the nervous system of a newborn is developing. There's like a little bit of a dip, and then there's an increase in the nervous system's ability to transmit sensory impulses to the brain. And where is that dip is right about 1 week. That means, yes, God made it that the 8th day, there is the least nervous sensitivity. There's the least feeling, and obviously that's the most. That's the best time for a bris, the least painful time. Isn't that, again, another wonder of the creator of the universe? And frankly, having been at dozens, maybe hundreds of these bris ceremonies, I can tell you that the tears that are cried by the baby getting a bris are really more from the fact that you take their diaper off and it's cold than the actual bris, because they start crying immediately when the diaper comes off. It's immediately they start crying. You put their diaper back on even after they just had this minor surgery, and they stop crying immediately. A little bit of grape juice, because they take a little grape juice from the kiddush cup, a little wine, a little grape juice, put it on a little gauze pad, put it in the baby's mouth, and the baby sucks on that, and done. Another thing that scientifically we now know is that sugar triggers like the pain, some of the receptors in the brain that respond to pain, that quell pain feelings. So all these things are fascinating things. So this ancient practice, the Jewish people have been doing for thousands of years, that science, medical medicine and medical expertise can only begin to appreciate to all of the different nuances that are old news to us. But really, and it's an amazing thing. It's a big deal. I tell you the story. I tell you a story of a great bris I attended. There was a fellow here. I gave him. He was a guest on Live at 5. Mike Malowski, Dr. Malowski. I think I told this story either to introduce him or when he was in the room. But he is a pediatrician, a talented pediatrician. And as such, he was trained to do circumcisions and had done many circumcisions, hospital circumcisions. Now, there's a big difference between a hospital circumcision and a bris. And one time, when all of the local regular Moalim, those are the people that are regularly do brisim, they were all out of town, and so that was one of my dear friends' families. They had a baby, a boy. They needed a bris, and he was the go-to person in town. There was nobody else in town, so they called him. So he called me up and he said, "Rabbi, I need you. I can do it, but I need you to come with me. You got to hold my hand." And I was like, "What do you need me for? You're an old pro. You're a pediatrician." You know, he said, "Look, I know how to do a circumcision, but a bris, that's a whole nother story." So we went down there and we figured it out. And he didn't just need me for the blessings. He needed me for moral support and a little vote of confidence. He got the job done. But afterwards in the car, he was telling me, he said, "Look, just so you know, I got to be honest with you. If you ever had a choice between a moil and a pediatrician, you should take the moil. Hands down. Those people know what they're doing. They've done it. Those things happen lickety split. Yeah, a talented moil can do that thing in seconds, and the amount of impact to the baby is the most minimal thing, and they routinely stop crying within moments. You know what I mean? It's just is it done right? That it's done right. So if you had to choose, don't go to the pediatrician's office. Go get your helpful moil. In town, my dear friend and colleague Rabbi Jacobs is a brilliant moil, and he was trained by the moil of Jerusalem. There was a famous moil, like the go-to moil in Jerusalem. And he was just known as Yosala the moil. Doesn't this sound like one of those, those stories from from like Europe and the shtetl? But I kid you not, I knew him and I was there many times. Yosala the moil. And he would do a couple dozen brisim every single day. Every single day he would do. I once walked, I was at a bris one time in Jerusalem when I was a student there, and he was going to be the moil, and he was late because, he wasn't a wealthy fella, and he was taking the bus from bris to bris to bris to bris all morning long, and he shows up late, walks in the room. He drops his bag. He's pouring alcohol on the knife as he's walking across the room. He shouts "Kvater," which means "Bring the baby, I'm here." He wasn't in that room for 10 minutes and that bris was done and he was on to next. You know what I mean? And so Yosala the moil. Now, Yosala, there's a sad story. He died. He died like about 15 years ago. Rabbi Jacobs is trained by his son, Moishala. Moishala the moil he took over his father's status as the moil of Jerusalem, and he trained. But you should know, I believe many of you may know one of the more famous moils of Denver, Yankee Fetter. Until very recently, Yankee Fetter was the go-to moil, a dear friend. He lives in Jerusalem, East Coast, but he's not in town much. But he was the go-to moil. He was trained by Yosala the moil, the Yosala the moil of Jerusalem. He was trained by him, and Rabbi Jacobs by his son Moshe. I had a moil that one time. It was this summer when my youngest son was born, the only bris I made in Denver, and we couldn't find a moil in Denver. Yankee Fetter was out of town. The other moilim were out of town. It was in the middle of the summer. Everyone was on vacation. We needed a moil. So what did I do? I called my dear friend whose name is Moshe Rappaport, and he lives in Baltimore, and he's a terrific moil. His son was one of my best friends in Jerusalem. And sure enough, he was trained by Yosala the moil. He trained like a generation of moilim all over the country, the world. They all went, and he would take you on as a student. And the deal was, if you were going to get trained by Yosala the moil, you had to give up, I think it was like a year of time, $10,000, and you had to agree not to practice in Jerusalem. So he would train anybody, and he was the best. And the most experienced. He had dealt with every possible permutation of odd case that could go on. He'd done it the most times. He was the most expert. And he was really a very amazing person. quick-witted, very willing, very sharp, he was very fun and pleasant to be, very caring. And he didn't charge. He didn't charge. I don't know if you know that there's kind of an expectation. You're going to compensate your mohel. You should compensate them for your time, and there's a going rate. But Yosala, he wasn't a wealthy person. He wasn't making wasn't making $1,000 a bris, and he wasn't doing wasn't making $24,000 a day from 2 dozen brisim. He was being paid nothing, or they would send him a challah for Shabbos. That's what they was being paid, and he did thousands and tens of thousands and. Unbelievable. I think, other great moils, many great moil stories. And, but nobody's like the first one, Abraham. Abraham, when he was told by God to do a bris, there's actually a medrash that says that he spoke up to some of his peers and asked them, should he do it? Now, that sounds like a very crazy medrash. Can you imagine? Here's God telling Abraham, the great Abraham was willing to go and bring his son on the altar when God tells him to. And he's asking for advice. Should I or shouldn't I about the bris? It seems very odd, right? It's a very strange medrash. So the explanation of that medrash is like this. You can imagine what was going to be said around town if you've got a 99-year-old person who is doing a bris for himself, and then he's going to expect this of all his progeny, what would the attitude be? So he said, but even before he did it, he went to others and he spoke it out with them. So he got them to recognize this was an important thing that was commanded directly by God, and that he should definitely do it. And they would say, you should do it. You should do it. And say, okay, you know what? I'm going to do it. And that buy-in from the world is an important thing today. Bris milah, along with other things, sometimes with kosher, the rules of kosher slaughter are under attack. In some countries, Jews are being given grief about it, and it's come under attack. And we don't want that. We want to be left alone to be able to practice this. For a while in America, it was considered to be healthy and normative that everyone should get a bris. And maybe that's still the case. I don't know. But there are places where it's come under fire, and we want to be safe from that, to be able to practice our almost 4,000-year-old practice of bris milah. We know how it's done, and it's very dear to us. It's part of what binds us to God, and it is specifically related to the land of Israel. Today we know is Israel Independence Day, and there's a 73-year birthday anniversary celebration of the modern state of Israel. Israel, our homeland, that the Jews, after 2,000 years practically, have returned to and set up shop once again. Today's the day of celebration. I guess in Israel it's already there. The sun is already set, but on the calendar it's still today. And the covenant of circumcision, the bris milah, as it's called, is part of that deal. Is that we are promised, we Abraham's progeny, were promised that land because of God's promise to Abraham that we would continue to walk in the ways of our forefather. Not only with bris milah, but with God told Abraham, your descendants, your children, and all of them, and generations of them are going to be enslaved in Egypt. They're going to come out of Egypt, and then I'm going to bring them back to this land, and I'm going to give them this land and the Torah and great wealth. And the fact that we lead our lives as the people celebrating the Exodus, we just went through Passover, leading up to Shavuos when we're going to renew our commitment to the Torah. Every day we in our liturgy, we recall Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when we plug back into that amazing deal, the covenant that God makes. And that is what entitles us to the land of Israel. There was a few years ago, the Israeli ambassador to Israel. I've spoken about this before. Such an incredible thing. Danny, I think, what was his name? Danny Ayalon, I think. No, it was his. Ayalon. It was Ayalon. That was him, right? He was the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, and he went there, and I don't exactly remember what prompted him, but he was making a statement of support, of proof, of evidence, and he was making the case why the land of Israel is ours. And he made multiple arguments. the first thing he did was he took out his yarmulke and he put it on right there in the United Nations, and he took out a Tanakh right there in the United Nations, and he read the verses in which God says, I am giving this land, Abraham, to you and your descendants forever to inherit it. That's what he did. He led that right in front of the United Nations, because at the end of the day, that's our, that's our thing. That's what, if it wouldn't be for that, we wouldn't need to go back there. We wouldn't want to go back. There's plenty of other places for us. But you know what? We are not going to go anywhere else, because that's the place where we are promised to be. It is our homeland, and it's promised us, and we're willing to fight for it. We if fight for it, we need to. That's what we'll do. But when we live there, we are home. When we live here in Denver, Colorado, we're on vacation. It's a nice place. Everybody likes to come to Colorado for vacation. It's good skiing. It gets nice snow. It's even nicer in the summer, but we're on vacation here, the Jewish people. This is temporary. We're not supposed to live here in Denver, Colorado. I hesitated before I fixed up my basement, because, this is not long term. The Messiah is going to come. We're all going to go back to Israel. And that's going to be it. It's right around the corner. Now, very soon, very, very soon. Every day we're supposed to be ready for it and believe that it's happening. That's the land of Israel, and part of our connection is the covenant of circumcision. And lastly, I just want to leave with this thought, because the numbers are like this. The bris that's done is on the 8th day of a baby boy's life, if he's healthy and able. Okay, the 8th day. That in every 8 days, there's always a Shabbos. So there's, 7 days comes before 8 days, which reminds me why, 6 why 6 is afraid of 7, because 7, 8, 9. We said that before. 6, 7, 8. 7 is the number of the Sabbath, and there's always a Shabbos before a bris. There's always, because it's on the 8th day. And the 8th day represents transcendence. 6 represents totality of the physical universe, says the Maharal. 7 represents the inner essence, the essential sanctity. That's the inside of the Rubik's Cube. And then 8, that is the number which represents transcendent sanctity. It's beyond the physical. 7 is a week, but 8 is beyond. 8 is beyond. 8 is something beyond. So, in fact, we want a physical sign of transcendence, of ultimate connection of the physical to something beyond and outside. So we make a bris on the 8th day, and that connects and ties permanently the individual, the baby and the boy and all of us. It binds all of us, men and women alike. We are bound by this covenant to something transcendent and beyond. Our ability to live in the land of Israel and remain there is dependent on our connection, our commitment to connect to the transcendent, to the Torah, and to godliness. The Torah also, by the way, is transcendent holiness. And that's why when we count not 7 days and go to the 8th, we count 7 weeks and we go to the very next day. The day right beyond 7 weeks is Shavuos, the holiday of the Torah, because it's also a transcendent sanctity. It's beyond 7, 8, in other words. That's our show for today, everybody. Have a wonderful Shabbos, Parshas Tazria Metzora, and have a healthy and a holy, and we'll see you, God willing, next Monday, 5 o'clock here, regular time schedule on Live at 5.
Thank you, Rabbi.